A messy little drawing. 3 people standing in front of a building labeled Lily's Hospital. Beneath it, a line of text that brought tears to Rachel's eyes. My family fixed me, now we're going to fix other kids. Just 1 year ago, Rachel was a worn-out waitress forced to trade her dream of becoming a doctor to care for her ailing mother. But after one fateful dinner, everything changed forever. A father, a little girl in a wheelchair, and one small act of kindness reignited a future that once seemed lost. Don't miss this inspiring story of compassion, sacrifice, and the miracles that unfold when you choose to do the right thing, even if it's just helping a child eat her macaroni and cheese. If you love touching human-centered stories, like this video, share it with someone you care about, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a journey that speaks to the heart. Now, let's begin the journey of Rachel Evans. The sound of shattering glass rang out sharply during the dinner rush at Maple Thyme, where every square foot was packed with customers and the air buzzed with overlapping conversations and the clinking of dishes. Sorry. Rachel Evans quickly dropped to her knees, her trembling hands picking up the shards of the broken glass. She could feel the burning stare from across the dining room where Mr. Clyde, the shift manager, stood with his arms crossed, his scowling face, looking as if it was the only expression he'd ever known. That's the 3rd time this month, Evans. He shouted loud enough for nearby diners to turn their heads. Cost of the glass is coming straight out of your paycheck. A few customers looked up awkwardly, while others ducked their heads, pretending not to hear Rachel's face flushed red. But she didn't argue she couldn't afford to lose this job, not when her mother's medication cost more than the rent. I'm sorry, Mr. Clyde. It won't happen again, Rachel said quietly, placing the glass shards into the trash before hurrying back to the waiting tables. 27 this year. Rachel's hands were calloused, sometimes marked with small burns, a testament to the years she had spent surviving in the service industry. This had never been part of her plan. 4 years ago, she was in her 2nd year at St. Helena Medical School, wearing a crisp white coat, a stethoscope draped proudly around her neck. She had been a top student in the pediatric track, often praised by her mentor. The way you connect with children is magical. Dr. Linwood had once told her they trust you in a way most adults could never achieve. But all of that disappeared the night her mother collapsed in their small apartment. Diagnosis: multiple sclerosis. Then came the mounting hospital bills, her mother's inability to work, and Rachel had to make a choice. No one should ever continue her studies or stay home to care for her mom. In truth, there was never a real choice. Table 14 needs more bread. Rachel, where's your head at today? Clyde's voice snapped Rachel out of her painful memories. Right away, she replied, weaving through the crowded tables with a bread basket in hand. The familiar backache returned as the night wore on. Double shifts had become her norm, from noon to midnight 6 days a week. Unlike most of the other servers who were college students working part-time, Rachel needed this job. She had a mother who couldn't walk on rainy days. As Rachel was refilling a water glass, Tina, the new 19-year-old waitress, leaned in with a mischievous grin and whispered, "Rachel, could you cover table 9 for like 20 minutes? Eric just texted is waiting for me in the car." Before Rachel could respond, Tina added, "I'll make it up to you later. Besides, Mr. Clyde likes you more anyway." They both knew that was a lie. Clyde always favored the younger girls, those who flirted and never questioned the unfair schedule rotations. "Tina, I've got my own tables, and I've been on my feet since noon." Rachel said, balancing 3 plates of food in her hands. Tina pouted slightly, putting on a show of disappointment. It's just 20 minutes. I helped you out last week, remember? When you had to call your mom's doctor. That reminder hit Rachel hard. It was true last week. She had snuck outside to call her mother's neurologist about a new treatment plan. The medication was promising and absurdly expensive, fine. Rachel sighed, but only for 20 minutes. Tina beamed and vanished like a gust of wind, leaving Rachel to take over another section. She spun through the dining room like a whirlwind, refilling glasses, taking orders, delivering meals. At one point, she caught Clyde watching her intently, as if waiting for her to slip up. He had become even more unpleasant since she dared to question the new tip-sharing policy, a system that somehow always left her with less than what she had actually earned. By 9 p.m., Tina still hadn't returned, and Rachel's feet ached inside her worn-out shoes. She had meant to buy a new pair 3 months ago, but every time she saved up enough, something happened. Mom's, meds, a broken faucet, rent going up. She bent slightly, took a deep breath, and pushed through the next round of service. No one was going to help her, but she still had to keep going, just like every other day. The envelope of tip money from the other day wasn't even enough to cover Rachel's mother's prescription. And yet this morning, the water heater broke. The savings shed set aside for new shoes now had to go toward repairs. And the rent for their aging apartment on Eastridge Street just kept going up. She was far too familiar with this vicious cycle. Next week's schedule is up. Mr. Clyde's voice rang out in the break room, followed by the sound of a stapler pinning the roster to the bulletin board. Rachel waited until the others had left before walking up to look. Her chest tightened the moment her eyes found her name. Instead of the usual 5 evening shifts and 2 lunches, she was now down to just 3 evenings. She swallowed hard, then headed straight to Clyde's tiny office, where he was glued to his computer screen. "Mr. Clyde is there. Some kind of mistake? Missing 4 shifts next week." "No mistake," he replied curtly. "Too many people scheduled, but I've worked those same shifts for over a year. I need those hours." Rachel's voice edged toward panic. Clyde finally looked up, expression flat. Tina needed more hours to make rent. She asked. I adjusted. Rachel bit her lip. "Tina lives with her parents. Last week she was bragging about saving for a spring break trip to Palm Springs. Not my business. Schedule's final." He turned back to the computer, a clear sign the conversation was over. Rachel stood there, mind racing with numbers. Losing 4 shifts meant losing nearly half her income, and her mother was running out of medication the doctor had warned her. If the treatment stopped, the condition would worsen quickly. Back on the dining floor, Rachel took a deep breath and walked straight to her section. She couldn't break down. Not yet. As she approached table 9, she noticed a new pair of guests had been seated. A well-dressed man in a sharp suit, clearly successful, sat beside a girl, around 8 or 9 years old, in a wheelchair. The girl had her head down, golden hair covering most of her face, but Rachel could see her shoulders tense, hands gripping the armrest tightly. Most servers avoided this section. Rachel had seen it plenty of times. Many co-workers felt uncomfortable serving guests with disabilities, claiming it was time-consuming and complicated. But to her, that was unacceptable. She walked up with a gentle smile. "Welcome to Maple Thyme. Rachel, he'll be taking care of you two tonight." The man looked up, eyes guarded, though his voice was surprisingly warm. "Thank you. I'm Henry, and this is my daughter, Lily." Rachel crouched down to Lily's eye level. "It's lovely to meet you, Lily. Would you like something to drink while you look over the menu?" Lily didn't reply, just cast a brief glance at Rachel. But in that moment, Rachel saw something achingly familiar. The look of someone fighting a battle that no one else could see. She didn't know it yet, but this little table would shift the course of her entire life in just a few hours. The restaurant remained noisy. The clatter of silverware bursts of conversation, the constant shuffle of movement. When Rachel returned with the drinks, she noticed Lily flinch slightly at every loud noise. Sound sensitivity. Rachel recalled the knowledge from her med school days. Saying nothing, she subtly positioned herself to shield Lily from the busy foot traffic nearby. "Here we go," she said softly, setting down a glass of water for Henry and a strawberry drink with a bendy straw for Lily. "Are you ready to order, or would you like a few more minutes?" Henry nodded appreciatively. "We're ready. He'll have the grilled salmon with asparagus." He glanced at Lily, who remained silent, eyes fixed on the table. After a brief pause, he continued, "And Lily will have the fried chicken with mashed potatoes, thank you." "Excellent choice." Rachel smiled, jotting it down. As she turned to leave, she noticed Lily gently tracing the kids' menu, with her fingertip lingering over the picture of macaroni and cheese with golden breadcrumbs on top. Rachel crouched again, speaking to Lily in a playful, secretive voice. "You know, our chef makes the best mac and cheese. It's got 3 kinds of cheese. Want to switch?" Lily's eyes widened in surprise. After a moment's hesitation, she gave a small nod. "Mac and cheese." "It is," Rachel said, making the change on her notepad. As she stood up, she caught Henry watching her with a look she couldn't quite read, as if he were witnessing something precious he hadn't seen in a long time. "You know," Rachel said gently, crouching beside Lily's wheelchair, "our head chef makes the best mac and cheese in the city. It's got 3 types of cheese and crunchy breadcrumbs sprinkled on top." It wasn't just a casual suggestion, it was a sincere effort to connect. For the first time since they had entered the restaurant, Lily looked up at Rachel. Her clear blue eyes widened, surprised to be addressed directly. A soft, tentative nod, Rachel smiled. "Mac and cheese it is." She noted the change on the order pad. As she stood up, Rachel caught Henry's gaze unreadable, as if observing her through frosted glass. But something quietly warm glowed behind it. Just as she approached the kitchen, Mr. Clyde intercepted her. "Why are you camped out at table 7? Tina's back and whining no one helped cover her section." "I've been managing my area," Rachel replied calmly, "and Tina asked for 20 minutes off, not a full hour." Clyde squinted. "Stop babying that girl in the wheelchair. This is a restaurant, not a charity center." Rachel tightened her fists but said nothing more. The doctor in her still lived, knowing when a patient needed priority and when silence was the only way to keep a job. "The order's in. Am going back to take care of my other tables." Rachel turned down the right aisle, continuing her rounds while still keeping an eye on Lily and Henry. Lily sat upright, hands folded neatly in her lap. Henry tried to engage her in conversation, but a quiet distance lingered between them, like 2 people who had once been close but were now estranged. Rachel recognized that awkwardness, maybe from unhealed wounds or words left unsaid. The food arrived not long after. Rachel quickly noticed that Lily was struggling with her fork. Her right hand trembled slightly, movements clumsy, causing bits of mac and cheese to fall back onto the plate before reaching her mouth. "Excuse me," Henry called softly as Rachel passed by. "Could you?" He gestured toward Lily helplessness clear on his face. Without hesitation, Rachel pulled out a chair and sat beside Lily. "Mind if I sit here for a moment?" Lily blushed and nodded. "You know," Rachel began, her voice soft like a breeze, "when I was in med school, they taught us that our bodies are like complex machines. Sometimes one part needs maintenance, even if the rest is working just fine." She picked up the fork, demonstrating a grip that would reduce the shaking. "Your brain is working perfectly. The signals to your hand are just a little wobbly, that's all." Lily looked at her, surprise and hope mixed in her expression. "Are you a doctor?" "Almost," Rachel smiled. "I was studying pediatrics, but I had to stop halfway." "Why?" Henry looked up, surprised to hear his daughter initiate a question. Rachel kept her tone gentle. "Because my mom got sick. I needed to be with her. Sometimes life asks us to choose things we didn't plan." She helped Lily guide a forkful of pasta to her mouth, then slowly let go, letting Lily try on her own. "Look at that, your brain's already finding new pathways." Lily focused. The second bite made it cleanly to her lips. A bright, early morning kind of smile bloomed across her face. "I was in a car accident. That's why I can't walk well now." "But you're really good with that fork," Rachel encouraged. "And I bet you're good at lots of other things, too." "I can draw," Lily whispered, "but only with my left hand now." "Then you're already better than most people," Rachel said sincerely. "A lot of folks with two hands can't draw anything at all." From across the room, Rachel could feel Clyde's stare boring into her back. She had been at one table too long. "I have to check on a few other tables. But I'll come back in a bit. Enjoy your meal, my little artist." As she stood up, something happened that made Rachel freeze. Lily laughed. Not a forced or awkward laugh, but a pure ringing laugh that filled the room like sunlight pouring through windows. A few nearby diners turned to look, smiling. Instinctively, Henry caught Rachel's eyes and mouthed, "Thank you." His face no longer looked like that of a worried father, but someone who had just seen light after a long stretch of darkness. Throughout the rest of the meal, Rachel returned when she could each time, speaking directly to Lily. No fuss, no pity, just her presence quiet and steady. As Lily eagerly talked about her art teacher who still came to the house because she couldn't attend school like other children. Rachel felt her heart soften. This little girl had endured so much, yet still clung to the small scattered pieces of joy. When Henry asked for the check, Rachel returned to the table with the bill and a small bag of crayons along with a coloring page featuring the Maple and Thyme logo. Just for Lily. On the house, she winked. Henry pulled out his credit card without even glancing at the bill. As Rachel processed the payment, she caught a glimpse of the name printed on the card. Henry Whitmore. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't recall from where. When she returned, he handed her a folded bill. "Lily, and I would like you to have this. You turned what could have been a very difficult evening into something special. I was just doing my job." Rachel replied, though both of them knew it wasn't that simple. What she had done went far beyond the duties of a regular server. Before they left, Lily looked up and asked, "Will you be working tomorrow if we come back?" Rachel didn't get a chance to answer before Mr. Clyde appeared right beside her. "Rachel, to the office, now." Henry narrowed his eyes slightly at Clyde's tone. Rachel remained composed. "I was just finishing up with my guests. Immediately, Tina can handle the rest." Clyde snapped lips, pressed into a forced smile. Rachel reluctantly followed. As she glanced back, she noticed Henry's expression had shifted no longer. just a grateful customer, but someone watching. Assessing, "Close the door," Clyde said as she entered the cramped office. The air smelled of stale coffee and cheap cologne, and the room was cluttered with papers and files. Rachel stood tall, too exhausted to sit. "What's this about?" she asked. Clyde leaned back in his chair, a half-smirk playing on his lips. "You tell me. I just watched you waste 30 minutes at one table while other tables were left waiting. I managed everything. That girl needed help. That girl is not our responsibility." Clyde cut in. "This is a restaurant, not a therapy center. What are you going to write in my file? That I helped a disabled child? That you can't manage your time?" Clyde answered coldly. "And by the way, next week you've got 2 shifts, 1 lunch, 1 dinner." The room seemed to tilt. 2 shifts, Mr. Clyde, that's not enough to even cover gas. "You know, my mother needs her medication. Your mother's illness isn't Maple and Thyme's problem. Tina is younger, brings in more customers, and doesn't turn half her shift into a hospital ward." His voice was sharp and flat. Rachel fought to stay calm. "This is wrong, and you know it." Duly noted, Clyde opened a drawer and pulled out an envelope. "Tonight's tips, adjusted since Tina took over some of your tables." The envelope felt unusually light. Rachel didn't even need to open it to know she'd been shorted Tuesday lunch shift. "Don't be late," Clyde said, eyes already back on his screen, dismissing her without another glance. Out in the parking lot, Rachel leaned against her 10-year-old Honda. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope inside $43. After a 10-hour day, she should have earned over $100. Tears of anger welled up, but she didn't let them fall. Crying didn't pay for her mother's medicine. 20 minutes later, Rachel quietly entered the small third-floor apartment. The dim glow of the hallway nightlight lit the way to her mother's room. She opened the door gently and saw Grace still asleep, her breathing steady. Beside the bed sat a carefully marked medication chart. Rachel let out a breath of relief. In the kitchen, she dropped her keys on the table and collapsed into a chair. A stack of bills was held in place by a magnet on the fridge, a power shutoff notice, a receipt for prescriptions, $800 due, after insurance money she didn't have. Her phone buzzed with a message from her neighbor, Mrs. May, who often helped care for her mother while Rachel worked. "Your mom finished her dinner. No tremors. You got home late. I left soup in the fridge. Sleep well." It was a small gesture, but it made Rachel's chest tighten. May's kindness was one of the few things keeping her afloat in this life. A wave of emotion swelled in Rachel's chest as she read Mrs. Mice's message. The quiet devotion of the elderly woman had become a lifeline that allowed Rachel to keep working over the past several months. Though Mrs. May refused any payment, Rachel still tried to give back small grocery bags when she could afford them. Without her, Rachel wouldn't have been able to keep her job at Maple and Thyme. It was late at night. Rachel opened her laptop intending to look for a new job. The browser was still open to the St. Helena Medical School portal, a site she visited now and then like a form of self-punishment for the dreams she had left behind. Her student account was still active, a rare gesture of grace from the school after she was forced to withdraw. On the screen, a small icon blinked an unread message from Dr. Linwood, her former pediatric advisor. Curious Rachel clicked to open it. "Rachel, the pediatric neurology department is opening a special research position. Even though you're no longer enrolled, your name still comes up whenever we talk about our top students. The deadline has passed, but I've requested an extension on your behalf. This position includes full scholarship and a living stipend. Call me as soon as you can. Dr. Linwood. The message had been sent 3 weeks ago. Rachel panicked and checked her email. Sure enough, the official announcement with application instructions had been buried between spam and ads. The deadline was yesterday. Frantically, Rachel typed a reply explaining her current situation and pleading for another extension. After hitting send, she closed the laptop. Heart tangled in conflict. Even if she got accepted, she couldn't return to school. Grace needed full-time care, and no stipend would be enough to pay for someone to replace her. She remained seated at the dining table until dawn. Her eyes were sunken from another sleepless night. Her phone chimed with the morning medication reminder. Rachel got up, carefully measuring her mother's pills into the small cup. A sudden knock startled her. 6 a.m. Who would be here at this hour? Rachel walked to the door and peeked through the peephole. A uniformed courier stood there holding a luxurious-looking envelope. Miss Rachel Evans, he confirmed as she opened the door. Yes, hand-delivered letter, signature required. After signing, Rachel accepted the heavy cream-colored envelope, high-end paper stock, the kind used for elite invitations or legal documents. The sender was printed clearly, Whitmore Holdings, with a downtown office address. Inside was a finely printed card and a business card. The business card read Henry Whitmore, Chief Executive Officer, Whitmore Restaurant Group. A handwritten note below Maple Thyme is one of my restaurants. Rachel froze. Henry wasn't just any customer, he was the owner and Mr. Clyde's direct superior. She quickly opened the letter. Miss Evans. Last night, your kindness toward my daughter Lily deeply moved me. In just a few short minutes, you demonstrated empathy, intelligence, and a level of professional insight I rarely witness even among those with advanced degrees. I'd like to invite you to my office to discuss something that may benefit us both. A car will arrive to pick you up at 9:00 a.m. today. If you accept this invitation, the driver will wait no more than 10 minutes. Lily is eager to hear more about neural pathways, something only a former med student could explain so well. Sincerely, Henry Whitmore. Rachel's hands trembled. How did he know her address? And why had this miracle appeared just as she was losing all hope? In the next room, her mother's faint voice called out, interrupting her thoughts. Rachel rushed in, helped her mother sit up, and administered her medication as usual. Then she returned to her room and opened the closet. She changed 3 times before settling on a navy blue suit, the same one she had worn to her medical school interview. Slightly outdated, but still modest and elegant. At exactly 9:00 a.m., a sleek black car pulled up in front of the building. Rachel exchanged a few quick words with Mrs. May, asking her to watch over her mother for a few hours. The driver, a woman in a crisp uniform, opened the door for her. Without a word, Rachel slipped into the plush leather seat, heart pounding. She didn't know what awaited her, but one thing was certain. Everything had changed since the moment she sat down beside a little girl with a plate of mac and cheese the night before. The woman driver, dressed in an elegant uniform, said nothing as she opened the door of the sleek black sedan. Rachel slipped into the plush leather seat, her chest tightening. She was anxious. Was this about Mr. Clyde, or worse, had Henry Whitmore uncovered something about her past? Was this a cleverly disguised trap to pin something on her? The high-rises of downtown Fairview loomed closer. The car turned into the underground parking of a gleaming glass tower, discreetly yet powerfully marked with the Whitmore Holdings logo. Rachel's heart pounded wildly as the car stopped in the dim garage. She felt like she had entered another world, a place she had never imagined she would set foot in. Evans, the driver, finally spoke. "Mr. Whitmore is waiting for you on the 40th floor. The elevator requires a security badge. I've been instructed to give you this." Rachel took the card from the woman's hand. He said, "You don't need to rush. Take your time." The private elevator shot up so fast her ears popped. When the doors opened, a sleek modern hallway stretched out before her. To the left, a reception area with large glass windows offered a sweeping view of the city. The young man behind the front desk looked up, offering a faint, polite smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Evans. Mr. Whitmore is expecting you in the main conference room, second door on the right." The door was slightly ajar. Rachel knocked softly and stepped inside, only to stop in her tracks, stunned. Before her wasn't a cold corporate boardroom, but a warm, intimate space set for breakfast, pastries, tea, and gleaming glassware. Seated at the table was Lily, the same shy girl from the wheelchair the night before. Lily's face lit up. "You came?" She chirped, more animated than she had been the previous evening. "Dad said you might be too busy to make it. I'm really glad I wasn't that busy." Rachel smiled, her anxiety melting at the sight of Lily's glowing expression. "Dad said I could start eating first, since adults always forget to eat," Lily said, sliding the plate of pastries toward her. "The raspberry one is delicious." Rachel sat down, charmed by the girl's maturity. In the morning light, she could clearly see Lily's intelligent eyes and a quiet strength in her face, just like Henry's. "How did you know where I live?" Rachel asked gently. Lily shrugged. "My dad knows a lot of stuff. He says information is as valuable as money." The girl took a bite of her pastry and continued, eyes gazing off thoughtfully. "He came home late last night. He looked really sad, was on the phone for hours." Before Rachel could ask more, the door opened. Henry Whitmore stepped in. Gone was the quiet man from the restaurant. Now he was dressed in a sharply tailored suit, commanding the room effortlessly. But when he looked at Lily, his expression softened. "Lily's taken over breakfast, all ready." He smiled. "Apologies for keeping you waiting. Miss Evans, I had to deal with something at Maple Thyme." There was something in his tone that made Rachel's stomach twist. "Mr. Whitmore, I'm not sure why I'm here. If this is about last night, then yes and no." Henry interrupted, taking a seat across from her, Lily. "Could you go with Miss Angela to see the city model on the 38th floor? Dad and Miss Rachel need to talk a bit." Lily hesitated, eyes darting between the two adults as if trying to read their intentions. "You're going to let her work with you, right?" Henry gave his daughter a glance that was part indulgence, part exasperation. "We talked about this already, sweetheart. Grown-ups need to talk first." A young woman entered to escort Lily before leaving. Lily gave Rachel one last look full of hope and quiet solidarity. When they were alone, Henry's smile faded. He sat up straighter, his eyes now serious. "I've owned Maple Thyme for about 6 months," he began. "It was part of a larger acquisition. At first, I didn't pay it much attention until recently, when reports came in about declining revenue and poor customer feedback." Rachel stayed silent, sensing that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. "Service quality is declining drastically," Henry said, his voice calm and measured. Rachel shifted slightly in her seat, sensing the air in the room grow heavier. "I don't understand what that has to do with me." "Everything," Henry replied, sliding a folder toward her. "Last night was the first time I visited Maple Thyme as a customer, rather than the owner. And what I saw was unacceptable. Not from you, your service was exceptional, but from the management. Rachel opened the file. Her eyes froze as she scanned the financial statements, employee records, and her own personal file. Among the pages were clear signs, discrepancies between actual tips received and what had been distributed. Mr. Clyde has been skimming tips for over 4 months. Henry continued, his voice unwavering. And he's been targeting certain staff, including you. Last night, after you left, I had the entire system audited. The conference room door burst open with a loud bang. Clyde stormed in, face red with fury, followed by Henry's assistant, visibly uneasy. "Apologies, Mr. Whitmore," the assistant said. "He insisted on coming up after he learned Mrs. Evans was here." "You set me up," Clyde roared, pointing a finger straight at Rachel. "You and that crippled girl." Henry rose slowly to his feet, his gaze suddenly razor-sharp. "Peterson, the person you just insulted, is my daughter, and Ms. Evans is a valued employee in my organization. I suggest you choose your next words very carefully." Clyde hesitated, clearly realizing the severity of the situation. "You can't. You don't understand how this system works. Tip sharing isn't simple, and is stealing simple?" Henry asked softly, but with unmistakable authority. "Is falsifying timesheets simple, or manipulating shift schedules?" Clyde went pale as Henry picked up a document. "As of this morning, you are no longer employed by any entity under Whitmore Holdings. Security will escort you out after retrieving your keys and access cards." Rachel sat silently watching as Clyde was led away. The room fell into a muffled hush until the door finally shut behind him. Henry turned back to her, his expression no longer stern, but thoughtful. "Now then, Miss Evans, or perhaps I should say former medical student, Rachel Evans, let's talk about your future." Rachel was stunned. Her fingers still rested on the documents proving the tip fraud. "How do you know about medical school?" Henry sat back down. "After what I saw between you and Lily, I guessed you had medical training. The way you observed, the way you responded, it was clinical but full of heart. Not something you learned just from waiting tables." He looked her in the eyes and continued. "You were in your second year at St. Helena, specializing in pediatrics. Top 15% of your class. Recipient of the Hightower Scholarship for Emerging Medical Talent. Praised for your work with children affected by neurological disorders." Rachel's chest tightened, hearing her past recited like a report. "That was a long time ago. 3 years and 7 months, Henry corrected gently. "Not long enough to call it a past life." "How do you know all of that in such detail?" Rachel asked, unable to hide her unease. "I have a very good team. But if that feels invasive, I apologize," Henry said with a respectful nod. "Let me be direct. I have a few job offers I'd like to extend to you." The weight in Rachel's body lightened, replaced by a surge of curiosity. "What kind of jobs?" "First general manager of Maple Thyme. Effective immediately. Salary, triple your current one with full health coverage for your mother, including medications and in-home care." The number Henry quoted made Rachel's heart skip. That amount could cover everything. Rent, treatment, even savings. Second, a position in a community health care initiative funded by Whitmore Holdings, providing medical services in underserved areas. It's in your field, and it pays even more than the restaurant manager role. Rachel's head was spinning. "Why would you offer all this to someone you barely know?" Henry was silent for a moment, then replied, his voice lower, more personal. Because in just 15 short minutes you did something that no doctor, therapist, or specialist has managed to do in the past 18 months. You made my daughter laugh and speak." In that moment, Henry's composed exterior seemed to crack. "Lily talked to you?" She laughed. She let you help without shame or anger. Rachel glanced toward the door where Lily had left minutes earlier. The accident was Lily's mother involved. A flicker of pain crossed Henry's face. "Car crash, Catherine. My wife died instantly. Lily suffered a spinal injury resulting in partial paralysis and neurological complications on her right side." His voice faltered. "The physical wounds are healing, but the emotional ones," he trailed off. "Until last night, she hadn't spoken to anyone but me in 18 months. She's extraordinary," Rachel said softly. "So strong she is." Henry nodded, eyes tinged with red. "Which is why I want to offer a third option." He slid another folder across the table. Inside was a letter of reacceptance from St. Helena Medical School, dated today. Attached were documents for a full scholarship and a living stipend. On top was Dr. Linwood's business card. "How did you?" Rachel whispered. "Dr. Linwood and I both serve on the pediatric hospital board," Henry explained. "When I told her about Lily and how you handled the situation, she knew immediately who you were. The scholarship she mentioned in the email, still available. One call from me and everything was ready." Rachel's hands trembled as she touched the letter, eyes welling up. "I can't. My mother needs full-time care." Henry nodded clearly, expecting that he opened another folder. Whitmore Holdings has several apartments specifically designed for employees with dependent relatives requiring medical support. One just became available, and I want it to be for your mother. It comes with in-home nursing services fully covered by our corporate health plan." Rachel choked back a sob, her vision blurring. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a key to the future she thought she'd lost forever. "Why are you doing all this for a stranger?" Henry paused for a long moment. "When Catherine died, I threw myself into work. Bought more companies, built more systems as if success could fill the void. But Lily withdrew further and further. I didn't know how to bring her back." He looked Rachel in the eye. "Last night, for the first time in nearly 2 years, I saw my daughter smile. You gave me that gift without knowing who I was. This isn't charity, Miss Evans. Medicine lost a remarkable talent when circumstance forced you to leave, and I selfishly hope you'll remain in Lily's life in whatever way you choose." Rachel stood up abruptly. "It was too much too fast. I need some air," she said, her voice unsteady. "The balcony outside is private." "Take your time," Henry replied gently. Outside, the crisp morning air swept through Rachel's hair as she stood 40 floors above the city. She stared down at the traffic below her mind. Racing, Henry's offer was enormous. Too generous, too surreal. She was afraid. Was this all a beautifully wrapped trap from a wealthy man? Would she be used just another way to fix his daughter? What hidden conditions hadn't been spoken? But what about her mother? What about herself? When Rachel returned to the conference room, Lily was back sitting beside her father. Her face lit up instantly. "You're going to be my doctor, right?" Lily asked, eyes sparkling. Rachel looked over at Henry, who simply shrugged. "She's guessing." She already started Googling med schools on her tablet. Smart and proactive. Rachel smiled, taking a deep breath, then she turned to Henry. "Before I give an answer, I need to make something clear." Henry nodded seriously. "Please, if I accept your help to return to med school, it has to be because I earned it. Not because you're buying a friend for Lily or hiring a private doctor for your family. Her words were bold, so bold she feared she'd gone too far. But Henry only smiled, visibly relieved. I expect nothing less, and my mother's care. It cannot be conditional on our personal relationship. The apartment and nursing care will be provided no matter what you decide, Henry confirmed. Well, then, Lily chimed in, it'd be very sad if you said no. Rachel knelt beside the wheelchair. Then, I think I know a former med student who could explain neural pathways to you. Maybe regularly, Lily beamed. Henry looked at the two of them and knew the door had opened. You know, Rachel said with a smile to Lily, there's a med student I know who used to study really hard. I think she'd be very happy to explain those neural pathways to you. Maybe regularly, and the smile that bloomed on the little girl's face was the most beautiful answer of all. 1 year later, the classroom buzzed with chatter as students trickled in for the Advanced Pediatric Neurology Seminar. Rachel sat in the front row, arranging her colorful notes and tablet with care. Her white coat was still relatively new, despite many wears bearing the crest of St. Helena Medical School, a place she had once believed she'd never return to, Professor Keller's notorious for surprise quizzes, whispered Lydia, her study partner settling into the seat beside her. Did you review cerebellar development? Until 2 a.m., Rachel replied, stifling a yawn. Her phone buzzed softly in her coat pocket, a message from her mother, Grace. Just finished hydrotherapy with Nurse Rachel. Feeling much better. Dinner at your place tonight. Lily's asking for my apple pie. Rachel smiled quickly, typing a reply. In the years since Henry Whitmore stepped into her life, everything had changed. Not just the return to med school or her mother's improving health, but the new family they had built together. Grace's supported apartment was in the same building as Henry and Lily's penthouse. What began as occasional dinners had turned into Sunday rituals. Then Friday movie nights, and moments when Lily would sit beside Grace listening to stories from her youth. 2 empty spaces across generations filled quietly by love, Ms. Evans. Dr. Linwood's voice beside her snapped Rachel back to the present. Could you stop by my office after class? Yes, of course. Rachel nodded, a flicker of worry rising. Was there an issue with her research paper on pediatric stroke recovery inspired by Lily? The lecture lasted 90 minutes. Afterward, Rachel followed Dr. Linwood to her office and was surprised to find Henry already waiting. I didn't expect to see you so soon, Rachel said, glancing at the clock. Dinner's not until tonight. Lily's doing great. She asked. Better than great. Henry grinned. Which is actually why I'm here today, here. Linwood closed the door, her face glowing. Mr. Whitmore has some exciting news. It's going to impact your training. I'll let him explain. Henry stepped forward, just a hint of nervousness in his voice. The Pediatric Rehabilitation Center we discussed it's officially happening. The board approved the final round of funding yesterday. He handed Rachel a thick folder embossed with the Whitmore Foundation logo. She opened it, her eyes lighting up as she saw architectural plans, therapy programs, and design notes, many contributed by Lily herself. The center will be named the Lily Whitmore Pediatric Rehabilitation Center. He said, It's really happening. Rachel whispered, turning to a page with illustrations of a sunlit therapy room. We only talked about this less than a year ago. That's why I'm here with Dr. Linwood. Henry continued exchanging a look with the professor. The center will need a medical director after you finish residency. someone who understands both the science and the people. Rachel froze. You want me to? We want to build a specialized academic track for you, Dr. Linwood explained, including certification in rehab medicine, administrative internships and research opportunities, everything to prepare you to lead the center. Rachel held her breath. But I haven't even graduated yet. The center opens in 18 months. Henry reassured her, and that position will wait until you're ready. A year ago, Rachel was struggling to afford rent. Today, she was being prepared for a role that takes most doctors decades to earn. There's one more thing, Henry said softly with a smile. Lily asked me to give you this. Henry said, his expression softening. He handed Rachel a carefully folded piece of paper. As she opened it, her heart tightened. It was a child's drawing, but filled with detail, 3 figures standing in front of a large building labeled Lily's Hospital. The 3 small people were labeled Dad, Rachel, and Lily, their hands linked in a row. Below, in Lily's slowly improving round handwriting, it read, My family fixed me. Now we're going to fix other kids. Rachel's eyes stung with tears. In just a year, Lily's progress had been incredible, from wheelchair to walker, to occasionally taking a few steps on her own. From silence to vibrant conversations, the very rehabilitation methods Rachel studied and practiced with her had become the foundation for the center's treatment model. I need to think about it, Rachel said sincerely. This is an extraordinary opportunity, but you don't want special treatment? Henry anticipated, smiling gently. I figured as much. Dr. Linwood nodded from behind her desk. We've already agreed the advanced training program will be offered to only the top 3 students in the class. You're one of them. Rachel. Rachel gently held the drawing tighter in her hand. Then, he'll give it serious thought. She stepped out of the office, her backpack heavy with medical textbooks, but her heart feeling light. In her notebook was Lily's drawing a reminder that sometimes one small act of kindness can change everything. Her phone buzzed. A group message from Lily's dad said, he told you about the hospital. Can we celebrate tonight? Followed quickly by a message from her mother, Grace. Bring an extra apple pie. So proud of you, sweetheart. Rachel stood in the exact spot where she had once read Dr. Linwood's email more than a year ago when hope seemed completely lost. Now she looked up at the gleaming glass windows of St. Helena, her heart full of gratitude. She thought back to that night at Maple Thyme where she had sat down beside a little girl and helped her eat macaroni and cheese. A small act, but the first ripple in a wave of change no one could have predicted. She typed back, celebration tonight. I'll bring ice cream, and Lily, get your therapy room design ideas ready for me, because some dreams, the ones we thought had died, are only waiting to be reborn stronger than before. From a young woman who once gave up her dream of becoming a doctor to care for her ailing mother. From a quiet night in an ordinary restaurant where she simply helped a little girl finish her macaroni and cheese. Rachel Evans not only reclaimed her path in medicine, she created something even greater. A medical center named after Lily dedicated to helping children just like her. But perhaps the most extraordinary part of this story isn't the scholarship, the title, or the prestigious offers. It's the bond between strangers who became a family, not by blood, but through love. One small act, one sincere heart, that's all it takes to change someone's life. And sometimes the future you truly deserve arrives when you choose kindness bravely. If this story touched your heart, leave a like to spread the message. Share this video with someone you care about. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories of hope, healing, and humanity. Thank you for listening. Well, see you in the next story.